the latest news coming out of Iran, and we know that the United States and Israel, they're attacking, the oil reserves in Tehran. They're trying to attack the energy because, there is a group of, journalists from CNN. They went to Iran to report. They said that there is no, people are not in rush. Look at the gas stations. They're still working. The shoppings are. But since then, it seems that that was huge for the Trump administration, that they start, they're intensifying the attacks on civilians. And then we see the attack on these energy spots and on these energy resources in order to bring some sort of chaos inside Iran. And how do you see the current situation with the war?
In my opinion, my humble opinion, more likely the oil depot wasn't hit by the Americans, it was hit by the Israelis. Because the Americans have flat out come out and said the real reason, what they really want, it's not nuclear weapons, it's not just regime change, they want the oil. They're flat out saying it. Soon the oil will be out of the hands of the terrorists, and it'll be better for the whole world because we'll control the oil. It's back to where a bunch of marauding bastards that want everybody, what belongs to you belongs to us. That's the mentality of Washington, and that's the mentality, well, I'd say that's the mentality of Europeans, except when Washington comes around and just takes what it wants out of them too. Washington is a pirate regime. They're murderous, marauding bastards that are more than happy to kill anybody's women and children to steal whatever anybody has. These are kleptomaniacs, an empire of theft. They've sucked their own people dry enough. If they suck them dry any further, they're going to have revolutions and stuff. So as usual, they're trying to murder off and then steal from everybody else. The Israelis, on the other hand, they want the Middle East a desolate hellhole. We've already seen Israeli spies being caught in Qatar and being caught in Saudi Arabia, trying to destroy the oil depot or the oil infrastructure. Of course, Iran hit Haifa's oil refinery too, so the Israelis are getting it pretty good on the chin. I've just my next update, I just compiled a bunch of videos of Israel getting hit, something that gets out through the censors because there's extremely strict censorship in Israel. Always has been. That's how democracies work. Even when they're not trying to murder off their neighbors, they still don't allow you to say anything that may go against the regime in Tel Aviv. So yeah, that's how the premier democracy works. So we're seeing, it's gone into the escalation of the desolation. With the Americans want the oil. The Israelis want everybody dead. And if the Americans die off in the process, it's not a big deal. I mean, let's look at it realistically. The U.S. is a whore for Israel. It's owned. And if the strumpets die off in the process for the greater good of the owners, so what? There's always the Indians to latch on to. It seems like the Israelis are now latching on to the Indians. They're sucking the Americans dry. I guess the Indians are stupid enough that they'll allow it. I don't know why. I mean, apparently, if you listen at least to Washington, there's not much coming out of Delhi in this case. Washington tells Delhi when it can buy oil and from whom it can buy oil. So apparently, India is now a vassal state of America, and some of the American think tanks are already saying, we're not going to let India rise up like China. We learned our lesson. We're going to beat India back down. So if the Indians are listening to this and have any pride left in themselves, they should start acting a little more like they own their own country instead of are owned by the Americans, because the Americans sure as hell making look like they're part of my French, they're bitch. So if the Indians have any national pride, you should be telling the Americans to bugger off. I mean, the Americans just murdered one of your guests from your parade. That is a spit in the eyeball of every Indian if they have any pride left. That's what just happened. So I don't know. I don't know. I guess we'll live and see. Some nations, I guess, will stand up for themselves. Other nations, I guess, will bend over. Just an interesting thing if India is doing this or not. But there's not much coming out of Modi these days. He seems to be very quiet and under the radar.
Yeah, we've learned from Iranians that they're talking about at least this war gonna continue until midterm election, which would be in November, and they don't see any time soon that they would agree on any sort of term to come together with I don't know, the United States and Israel or all of that. It's nonsense to me, but it seems that the plan is at least they want to continue until November. And how do you see it as war is somehow escalating? And today we've learned IRGC is going to increase the number of missiles going to Israel by 100%, and number of drones by 20%. How do you find the system, the air defense system of Israel, together with the United States? We know that they're bringing a lot of air defense systems from South Korea, but a combination is not just about air defense system, radars together with interceptors. How do you find this air defense system of Israel?
There was an article that came out that said within, I think, the first 2 or 3 days of this conflict, the U.S. used up 3,600 missiles. That's both interceptor missiles and offensive missiles. Now, that's not just that's just not Tomahawks. That's probably including air-to-land missiles from fighter bombers and so on. But the point is U.S. can't maintain that rate. It cannot replace what it's shooting. It is now raiding all of its strategic holdings. It's raiding its allies. I'm sorry, the U.S. doesn't have allies. It's raiding its vassals. The vassals that it promised to defend are now going to be left naked. And they've pissed off China. They've pissed off players like that. Those allies or vassals are now going to be stripped from the weapons they're going to need after pissing off everybody for the Americans. Not a very smart thing. So maybe they'll start to figure out that pissing off the Chinese, pissing off the Russians, pissing off everybody around you for the Americans, and then the Americans will just backstab you and take whatever they can to defend the owner class, the Epstein owner class in Israel and in D.C. So maybe somebody will wake up somewhere. The Arabs sure got a rude awakening, very rude awakening. Of course, the Arabs are duplicitous as usual. We see this of the Saudis who said, our airspace is closed, but American stealth fighters are using their airspace left and right. Somebody forgot to switch off a transponder, or maybe did it on purpose, and demonstrated the flight routes that they're using across Saudi Arabia. Lavrov had a very big talking down to the Arabs, who were begging Russia to intervene and somehow save their skins. And then, of course, trying to put, as Lavrov said, trying to sit on 2 camels at once. And they usually, if you try to put your arse on 2 or 3 seats at once, you usually wind up falling on the floor between them. And that's what these Saudis are apparently in the process of doing. I guess they want their nation destroyed. Realistically speaking, the Israelis are going to make sure that everything is destroyed in the area. There's even talk that they're starting to hit desalination plants. And while that will be a lot of damage to Iran to destroy its desalination plants, it still has freshwater resources, as opposed to the desert kingdoms that do not have the freshwater resources to feed even a portion of their people. Their populations are absolutely dependent on desalination plants, without which they start to die. Just mass die-offs because there's no water. You can live without food for 3-4 weeks if you've got enough reserves. As a person starves slowly, or at least a week and a half, 2 weeks if they're already skinny. Starvation is a slow death. 3 days without water, or in that desert condition, 1 day without water, and bye-bye person. And that's the reality. And when you have millions of people that are dependent on desalination plants, if it goes to that, you're going to see a mass die-off in the Middle East from along the Persian Gulf. And by the way, the Israelis aren't much better. They're dependent on desalination plants as well for the population that they have. These areas, historically, they were, at least the Israeli area was greener, and they've greened it quite a bit, but they've been using deep aquifers to do it. A lot of these areas are going through droughts, as we know, very bad drought season over the last 10, 15, 20 years. So if it gets to that point, that's the same thing as a slow-acting weapon of mass destruction. But it looks like that's the direction it may be going. I mean, we saw when the Israelis hit the oil depots outside of Tehran. Sky's black, raining salt. That's chemical weapons, basically. That is a makeshift chemical weapon attack. So they are continuing to escalate. The Iranians could go on for months. I'm sure they can. The question is, what will the Israelis do? The reason they're going to up their inventory of missiles heading toward Tel Aviv and the outskirts of Jerusalem and other portions of Israel is simply because the missile systems, defensive missile systems, are running out of ammunition. The radars have been destroyed. Not only the forward-looking radars that in Bahrain and Qatar, but now the THAAD radars, 2 of them have been destroyed. There's only 7 of them to begin with. 2 of them have been destroyed. Maybe 3. There's 2 were destroyed in Saudi Arabia. 1 was destroyed in Jordan. So that's 3 destroyed. And those radars, they see over the horizon. They're very bright on the pickup, so they draw a lot more attention. So what do? The Israeli-American notification system has gone down from 30 minutes to 1 to 2 minutes on incoming, which means they cannot react fast enough, especially when there's large waves. So yeah, Iran at this point can increase and start hitting even harder. Israel's censoring, but the people in Israel are in a less than friendly mood right now, because where they were promised even safe zones, those zones aren't safe. We see the beginnings of intermittent conflict internally between Israelis and their imported labor. By the way, there's lots of people videotaping. I'm talking Indonesians, others that are working in Israel, saying that they're not allowed into the bunkers. The Israelis won't let them in because they're not the right religion or right race. I mean, we're looking. This is what happens in an apartheid state. That people that are told that they are special, more special than everybody else, they're the exceptional ones. And when it comes to that, a lot of them will believe it, especially in a stress situation. And the people that are working for them, the Filipinos and such, they're just tossed on the street to survive. And believe you me, that gets out. That gets out in every direction. So this image of Israel as some kind of democracy, some kind of liberal area, which is always, it was partially true, partially false. I mean, Tel Aviv was the LGBT capital of the Middle East. Well, Jerusalem is a very religious city. So it's all under one roof and not that far apart from each other. But at the end of the day, we see what happens. That human decency and all that seems to go away really quickly when you're the chosen and they're not, and there's only limited space. So that's that point. But what will Tel Aviv do? I mean, if they go nuclear, first of all, it's not going to save Israel. It might quite do the opposite. Israel does have a nuclear reactor, and so far as I know, Iran has not targeted it. I'm sure if Israel goes nuclear, Iran will let loose with everything it has. It has nothing to lose at that point, period. And Israel as a territory is going to be dead. It's going to be destroyed. It's going to be economically dead. It's already basically economically very, very damaged. And I want to congratulate the American tax peasant because you are going to be rebuilding all of Israel. Not your schools are going to get rebuilt. Your infrastructure is going to get built. You don't deserve it. You are a peasant and a serf for the betters. And your betters demand that you rebuild their country after they start a war that your sons and daughters are going to get to die in. Congratulations. You're lucky to be chosen by the chosen to rebuild the chosen. But I guess if Americans don't mind, they don't mind. Their own 40% of 8th graders can't read in America. The literacy rate's insane. But hey, somebody else gets free health care and you don't. And you're going to get to rebuild their country. But they can continue. They can continue for quite a while. And what we see with America's, I guess, latest trumpet, I don't know how else to put it, or vassal, India has now been allowed to buy Russian oil. Americans have allowed it because they're magnanimity, that's like that. Really, it's because the Indians will then refine it and resell the fuel to the European Union, maybe. The problem is that the Americans are still thinking of this as short term. This may, so maybe another month or so. And the fuel shock in Europe, then they'll get over it. Well, if this goes on through the summer, there's not going to be a Europe as an economy left, period. Because guess what? You may have good rail lines, but at the end of the day, everything still has to be trucked from wherever to the final selling point. And if people don't have fuel, if there's not enough diesel, if there's enough gas, by the way, is used extensively for electricity generation. You better hope it's not a hot summer like last year, or there'll be very big problems because there won't be any air conditioning. There won't be enough electricity. Welcome to reality, Europe. The reality you more than deserve on many, many levels of being stupid, of being spineless, and of tolerating the leaders that you have. The leaders that are using you, raping you, and destroying you. But you sit on your couches and you tolerate it, so you deserve it.
Sas, you mentioned something so crucial and important for the whole region in the West Asia, going to Israel even, is that desalination. And Donald Trump was asked by a reporter if the United States attacked desalination plants in Iran. And here is what he said, Donald Trump said.
Iran today accused the U.S. of hitting a desalination plant in Iran. And they said that might open the door to other strikes on infrastructure, non-military.
Allow us to also open the door to other strikes against them.
Look, you respond to that allegation? Did the U.S. hit the desalination?
They are among the most evil people ever on earth. They cut babies' heads off. They chop women in half. What they did, take a look at October 7th. Take a look at what they've done over the last 47 years. So I know nothing about a desalinization plant other than to say if they're complaining about a desalinization plant, we complain about the fact that they shouldn't be chopping babies' heads off, okay?
The guy simply doesn't answer the question. He goes on and on with the Israeli rhetoric and lies of October the 7th and merging that argument to Iranians and the Iranian, people. And it's a huge mess in his mind, as we see, because these are the concepts that he has in his mind. He has no concept, if we put it, simply. And they were talking about salad of words he's using. He's just, spreading lies and over. He doesn't know what he's talking about. What is your understanding of Donald Trump being the president and being the main, character who's responsible for what's going on between Iran and the United States?
Wait a minute, Nima. You were just in Iran. You mean you didn't go to the morning baby chopping head ritual that gets done in every square in Iran every day? You didn't see that? Well, what are you talking about? They've been killing babies in America, and they bring like one or two Americans to chop their heads off every day too. I mean, they've been killing Americans for 47 years, I guess, every day. I mean, there must be like 1 million dead Americans by this point. That's what we're being told, and every day they're ready to make a nuclear bomb. But it's just for 40 years now, 47 years they've just been killing Americans every single day. I mean, the Iranians burnt Mosul to the ground. The Iranians bombed markets in Yugoslavia and hospitals. The Iranians shot at their own schools and their own kindergartens in the Donbass. The Iranians, are massacring people left and right for the last hundreds of years. Oh, I'm sorry, that was the U.S. I guess I missed something in Trump's propaganda spill. Look, the only thing Trump is really good at is marketing. And part of marketing is to repeat the lie over and over and over and over and over and over again. They say you have to make a physical motion 19 times for the synopsis to form that this is how, for the brain to remember that physical motion, especially if it's a complicated physical motion, so it becomes natural. 19 times. Somebody may be faster, somebody may be slower. It's the same thing with this. Look, if you repeat a lie enough times for the average human being, especially if that average human being is not very read, and considering the U.S. Illiteracy rate is like 21%, and another 32% partial illiteracy rate, you repeat enough times, people will believe and repeat the same lies. They don't know anything. Look, you ask the average American right now, find Iran on a map. Find Afghanistan, where they spent 20 years on a map. Hell, I'm pretty sure if you ask the average American, find America on the map, you'd be surprised at the percentage that couldn't even do that. That's what happens when you have a totally collapsed education system. Says the president, blah, blah, blahs, the same lies and crap. And he dominates the media. It just gets repeated. Look, I mean, you got Jon Stewart over there who's cracking jokes about, Khomeini wanted to be a martyr so he can get his 72 virgins, and how badly disappointed those virgins are going to be because he's an old guy. Ha, ha, ha. This is how they play off the mass murder they commit. We heard for 6 days we didn't hit that school, and then, well, maybe we were hitting something near that school. Oh, well, maybe we did hit that school. And 180, I don't know what the count is. It keeps going up. Last I heard somebody saying 180, but 165 was the last I saw in any kind of journalistic article. Were killed, but they've hit several other schools. They've hit 13 hospitals. Oh, whoops. Oh, now the blame is on artificial intelligence. It's picking our targets. We're not really responsible for that. See, those chips over there, they're the ones doing the thinking. We're just innocently just dropping those bombs and pressing the button to shoot. This is the modern version of, I was just following orders. I did not do this because I wanted to. I did not run the concentration camps in Germany because the Hitler told me to do that. It doesn't work. It's still a war crime. The U.S. has committed massive war crimes. It's committed war crimes constantly. I mean, let's not be ignorant about it. Let's not delude ourselves. When I was a cadet, we had a special forces sergeant who was our instructor for infantry tactics. And one of the first things he taught us was double tap everybody. It's against the Geneva Convention, absolutely. If a wounded soldier surrendered, you were bound by the law of the land, the Geneva Convention the U.S. signed, to treat him and evacuate him if need be. We were taught double tap everybody. If you don't need a tongue, well, in Russian it's called a tongue, somebody to talk, somebody to interrogate, you double tap them. That way you don't have to worry about it. And if anybody doesn't understand what a double tap means, it's 2 controlled shots to the head. Well, maybe not necessarily to the head in this case. You can, but the point is you kill everybody. If they're surrendered, you kill them anyways. Welcome to reality. And this is as a 18-year-old at NC State, ROTC. This is how we were taught. Sure, nobody will admit to that, but that's the reality of it. And you see this when they leave, when they double tap people surviving on a speedboat or that they blew up. You see this when they leave sailors that they've sunk a ship on, that they are duty bound to pick up by American law, because America signed the Convention of the Seas, the law of the seas. They're duty bound to pick them up. They don't. They leave them there to die and sink. And they do this over and over and over again, and then scream everybody, we're the righteous, we're God's chosen to be the righteous. We're here to tell you how to live. You better damn well wish everybody doesn't live the way you live, because it's going to be a bad day for the U.S. if everybody does what the U.S. does to the U.S. And they don't seem to want to understand that. After all, right now, I mean, you've got senators screaming about, we're the big predator. We can do whatever we want. Yeah, that's right up to the point somebody puts a spear in your head. That's welcome to reality. You ain't going to be up top all the time. In fact, you're not up top already. You may have not realized that. The U.S. is running out of munitions. The U.S. is getting desperate enough that it looks like they may be throwing in the airborne, either in Azerbaijan to invade from the north. I doubt it'll go through Turkey into Kurdistan, because the Turks damn well don't want a independent Kurdistan on their border with those headaches. They may try, which would be really interestingly stupid, to try to take the southern portion of the Straits of Hormuz, because Trump is now declaring that the U.S. Navy will escort ships to the Strait of Hormuz. Talk about a suicide mission. I mean, the reality is you don't need land-to-sea missiles. Welcome to the modern reality. You don't need, you don't even need direct fire artillery. You need about 1,000 kids with a joystick and a little pad and a visor and drones. You get the bigger drones and you put an RPG round underneath them. Oh, that way they've been used all over the front, the Russian-Ukrainian front. And by the way, the Ukrainian terrorists used it against the Russian tanker that was going by the Aegean Islands, and they attacked it with a swarm of FPV drones because it was just close enough. You know, those things will go. They'll easily cover on their charges. They'll easily cover the Straits of Hormuz. It's 32 kilometers, 35 kilometers at its narrows. You can just close it with that, and you send 100 or 200 of those toward an American destroyer. You're going to hit. You're going to hit multiple times. They can't stop them all, and you can send hundreds of those. They're cheap. But I mean, Trump is out to lunch. If he forces the U.S. Navy to do this suicide mission, I guess there's going to be a lot of scuttled ships all over that area.